The Supreme Court has revised the official transcript from last week's hearing after Associate Justice Neil Gorsuch was accused of saying the flu kills, quote, hundreds of thousands of people. The transcript has now been updated to match Gorsuch's words, in which he clearly said the flu kills hundreds, comma, thousands of people. Listen.
We have flu vaccines. The flu kills, I believe, hundreds of thousands of people every year. OSHA's never purported to regulate on that basis. Well, what do we make of that when we're thinking about what qualifies as a major question and what doesn't?
So it looks like some on the left can finally calm down as he's not spreading misinformation, unlike Justice Sotomayor, who was given 4 Pinocchios by the Washington Post for her false statement on the amount of children who are in serious condition due to the virus. Meantime, things are heating up as we get closer to a decision from the Supreme Court on Biden's vaccine mandate. Now, progressives are already sounding the alarm, putting the Supreme Court on blast after last week's argument suggested that the justices were likely to strike down at least one of Biden's federal mandates. And here to help break it all down is criminal defense attorney and anchor at Law and Crime Network, Bob Bianchi. Bob, thank you so much for joining me. So, Bob, I've been saying this since we heard those oral arguments last week. I was really disturbed about the false information that was being spread by Justice Sonia Sotomayor. I mean, to me, that is totally unacceptable. We need to have justices who are informed on what's actually going on with this virus as they make these very important decisions that is going to affect the lives of millions of Americans.
Yeah, sure, Stephanie. I mean, listen, I think that this is going on culturally for a long period of time, and it's very frustrating as a legal analyst, is that it's very difficult to be able to assess nuanced issues like this unless you're operating from a basic set of facts that we can consider to be true. And then we can debate the legalities of that based upon what the constitutional principles are. But we're in a place right now, and this is, again, why it's frustrating, is that you really can't get a standard operating set of what the facts are. One side says this, the other side says this is manipulated, this is spun. Stephanie, you've heard me for a long time commenting on federal court cases, in fact, where we're trying to analyze a trial, but we don't have cameras and recordings, so we can't hear it for ourselves. But just like the clip you play with Justice Gorsuch, if you get to listen for itself, you get to make your own decision as opposed to listening to what somebody else says. And that's one of the reasons why in court hearsay is not allowed, because it's inherently unreliable. So that's where we're at, Stephanie, unfortunately.
Yeah, when you look at what happened with Gorsuch, it's like we're playing a game of telephone here. And if you just listen to him directly and pay attention, you'll hear what he said. But there was just complete and total outrage over people thinking he made a false statement when it wasn't even true.
Here's the thing about Justice Gorsuch's statement that's just confounding to me, again, as a lawyer, not a political analyst. The left should have been picking up on the fact that he said the flu is hundreds, comma, thousands. If that's in fact what was said, it actually supported the left's opinion, because what he's essentially saying is that how can you compare a virus that's killed hundreds of thousands of people versus a flu that only kills hundreds or thousands of people? So if I were the lawyer there arguing on the other side, I'd say, well, Justice Gorsuch, if you said hundreds and just thousands, that's one sliver, as opposed to hundreds of thousands, which justifies the mandate even more. But everybody gets so caught up in trying to exacerbate the facts of the situation that the opportunity was lost to make that argument. So it's kind of ironic, if you will, Stephanie.
Absolutely. And you know, I've been against vaccine mandates since the beginning. I'm not anti-vaxxer. I just think people should make those decisions for themselves. I don't think it should be pushed through OSHA onto the employer. I think that's a burden for employers as well. So, you know, I have what I'm hoping and praying will come from the Supreme Court. But legally speaking, based on what you heard, where do you think this is going?
You know, this is really a fascinating case. If you're a legal buff, if you take out the histrionics of whether you're pro-vax or anti-vax or whatever, and you look at it from a strictly constitutional point of view, we're getting back to founding father stuff here. We're getting back to that inherent states' rights and their distrust of the federal centralized government. And there's that balance that's gone on since time immemorial of our Constitution, where we ask the question, is the federal government usurping states' rights? And as time has gone on, states' rights have gotten lesser and lesser and lesser, especially after September 11th. Let's get to the point, the constitutional point. The federal government was given a tremendous amount of power over the years in order to do that common health, safety, and welfare of the community. But how far is too far to states' rights are obliterated? One side will say, well, if there was any way that a government should be involved, the federal government, it should be something where states' rights won't work, because if you do it in New York, but you don't do it in Alabama, people are going to get affected throughout the country. However, the other side of the argument is the fact that the government should not be using OSHA to federally mandate things that the states should have the right to do. So we're on a real razor edge, thin precipice here, Stephanie. And I think it's going to come down ultimately to OSHA's guidelines with respect to businesses being different than the guidelines that they're putting out for vaccine mandates with regard to medical facilities. And why? Because the law has always said that if you accept federal funds, the federal government can mandate various things so long as they're not, quote unquote, unconstitutional. And here, medical facilities mostly take federal dollars. And if if the local businesses do not, I see that being more them saying, well, that's more for the states to decide, not OSHA.
Yeah, another question I have too is when it comes to these vaccine mandates, the goalpost is always shifted. So now we're hearing from the CDC that you might need even more boosters to be considered fully vaccinated. So at what point does that stop? You know what I mean? And so there are a lot of people who've been vaccinated, but they're like, you know, I don't want 10 boosters this year. So yeah, if they approve, if they were to somehow support this decision and continue on with OSHA with these mandates, like at what point do they draw the line here?
You know, Stephanie, that's a great question. There is a point where it's called the rational basis test. The ability to force somebody to do something has to be rationally related to a compelling government interest here. And I agree with you. I personally have the vaccine. But I mean, I did that, of course, with trepidation. I want to make sure it's medically safe, so on and so forth. But if all of a sudden I'm being mandated to take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 vaccines, you know, I'm going to obviously be concerned about that. And the courts are going to have to sift out whether or not the government has the ability to do that. Let's not forget, there's already been a history in this country of decisional Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court rulings saying that the government can force vaccinations on people. It went all the way back to smallpox and polio and shots for vaccines for kids at school. So the question is, how much is too much? I think we're going to have to wait for how bad it gets, Stephanie, and you can be assured once you have to start getting 5, 6, and 7, there'll be more and more lawsuits that are going to come up, whether or not that mandate is from the state government or the federal government. And last point, we're going to have to watch out, because if the Supreme Court says that all these vaccine mandates are no good and OSHA couldn't do what they do, get ready for states to start putting in their own mandates, which will start a whole nother flurry of investigation in federal court.
Definitely. And then I think that, you know, we often hear this argument. It's like, oh, well, you know, people have been forced to take vaccines, or the polio vaccine and everything else, but that was through the states. And this is a totally different animal because it's the federal government through OSHA. And then keep in mind, the president himself said that it was unconstitutional and that he would never mandate any sort of vaccine on the American people and or masks. So it's incredible what he was saying then versus what's happening now. Well, we'll be keeping a close eye on it. We appreciate you breaking it down for us. Thank you.
My pleasure, Stephanie. Thank you.
Of course. Coming up next, we're learning